Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 2 video. And this one I'm going to talk about kind of like how to make currency and what to think about in the early stage of endgame content once you finish the campaign. So you don't find yourself finishing the last boss, the cruel difficulty, and then sitting there like a question mark thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now? I'm going to try to help you out and get you a little bit on the right track here. First and foremost, in the end of Act 3 Cruel, which will be Act 6 when the game launches, the way to get to the map device is to head over to the it would be to go to Cigarette's Refuge is the place you want to go to. That was really awkward. Cigarette's Refuge is the place you want to go to. In here, in this area, you will find yourself the actual map device. However, how do you then get a sweet looking, hideout like this one with I don't know what the fuck that is, the dinosaur looking motherfucker, that will give you access to your own hideouts? Well, either you have a supporter pack that will give you access to these immediately, or you'll have to use that little central hub, or you can go to the endgame map system, which is called the Atlas, the infinitely scaling Atlas. There's it's infinite. There's no ending to it. There's a lot of things around here that they need to fix. But this system is utilizing a couple of different things, such as precursors and waystones. Waystones are essentially your maps from PoE 1. If you're new to PoE 2, we don't have to think about maps. But if you hear the term maps, people are referring to waystones. If you look at the different icons, you can find out certain type of mechanics that is available in these zones, including things like the Iron Citadel and whatnot. First and foremost, your hideouts. If you look for this icon right there, it will say Limestone Hideout. Recommendation is to not pop a giga hard super rolled map or anything like that. Just pop like the lowest tier map you have, because if you go into this zone, you'll just clear a small room of monsters, and in that room of monsters, once you clear all of them out, you will basically unlock this hideout. Then what you're able to do is click on the waypoint, and then click on you can travel to your hideouts, and that will prompt you to choose which hideout you want to use. Not sure which of these NPCs actually lets you change this, but that's how you do it. One of the NPCs, maybe it's Alva actually. Select hideouts. And you get this menu, so you can choose which hideout you want. If you have some supporter packs, so we will have some hideouts from that. Obviously, more of the supporter pack stuff that we have from PoE 1 will be transferred over to be functional in PoE 2 with due time. In due time, actually. But that is how that specific system is working. Outside of that, I would recommend running whatever type of waystone tier that you're able to handle, and basically just focus on doing that first to get your levels. Also, make sure you get your gear equipment to get that started. It is fair to point out that a lot of the information about the Atlas system you can find in the top left corner by clicking on this little I button. By clicking this, you get a map legend. You can hover over these things, and it'll tell you a bit more information about these things. For example, corruptions. Every line that's underscore like this, you'll be able to hover over to get some more specific information about these specific types of contents. That's an easy way for you to get a bit more information about what they do and what to expect from running into these. Currency-wise, in the early stage, for newer players in general, I would say focus on just killing monsters as much as possible. Spend as little time as you can in your actual hideout, or the central hub, if you will. Just make sure that you run maps as much as waystones as much as possible. It's going to take me a while to get used to saying waystones instead of maps, I'll tell you that. So, what are you going to do? Basically, what we're looking for is nodes like this one here. This is a deserted map. By clicking this one, I can then run that. What happens, actually I have to go here. There we go. Now it will work. So by clicking this one, I can then put a map in here and then traverse. And that'll open up the portal. You can only have one portal in there, and I'll run this area. This one doesn't have anything extra other than magic monsters and quantity of items found in the area. That's it. Nothing special. Then you have a bunch of other icons available. For example, this one here is called Breach. This is a breach mechanic, and this is a clasped hand that sticks up from the ground. And if you step on it, it will spawn the breach mechanic. It will then spawn a ton of monsters zerging you. The more monsters you kill, the further the ring will expand. And if you don't kill monsters, it will then close itself. And this is how you drop certain breach splinters, which I will show you right now. You will drop these breach splinters, which you can fight the endgame boss of that specific mechanic once you've collected 300 of these. You will also be finding catalysts, which looks like this, for example. These catalysts is adding quality to your rings or amulets, and they do different things. For example, my current rings have lightning catalysts on them, to make sure that my lightning risk becomes even more negative than they already are. Very special. There's a link in the descriptions down below to my build guide for this build. So that's the kind of catalyst I'm using. Whereas I actually have attributes catalyst on my amulet to increase the value of the attributes I get from my strength and all attributes here. It's a very small one, but it's kind of nice. I could use the energy shield as well. So that's basically the kind of currency and mechanic you can expect from the breach. If you open up your Atlas passive skill tree, the breach will be the left-hand side here, which says that you have to complete the Twisted Domain to get points in here, and the harder difficulties, the more points you get. So basically, I can farm this type of content to be able to rank up skills to this tree, that you can ramp the efficiency of this mechanic. And there's a bunch of nodes here. I'm not going to go through all the nodes. It's very preferential. For example, breaching map open and close a little slower to make it a little bit easier to manage if you need that. You can have increases of breaches to contain an additional breach, for example, which is pretty crazy as well if you really want to double down on farming it and whatnot. So that's a way you can scale your breach mechanic. Other icons that exist on the map could be this one right here. This is a corrupted zone. This is adding 1+ monster level. Basically, taking a tier 1 map would be a tier 2 map in terms of area level. So here's an example of a tier 15 map, which is the highest you can drop. It says monster level is 80. If I put a tier 16 map like this one, it will now say monster area level 81. This is how you create this is what would be equivalent to a tier 17 map or Waystone. If you find one that has corrupted and another icon called irradiated, that would add yet another level. So I'm going to find an irradiated. This one does nothing but add another monster level. So if you have one that is corrupted and irradiated, what then happens is you can get this to become an area 82 zone with a tier 16. The way you get tier 16 maps is by having a tier 15 map and then corrupting it with a Vol Orb. So if I corrupt these, I didn't get one at all. Thanks, game. Appreciate it. Very nice. So that's how you get tier 16s, by just corrupting tier 15 maps to get to that stage. However, when it comes to the corrupted zone, what this does is that they have coalesced corruption. What this does is that once you kill enemies, they will sometimes spawn a little small red blob on the ground. This red blob actually does nothing, but if you spawn many of these red blobs close to each other, monsters from the corrupted zone, or what's called beyond, will then spawn. And this is something that has changed from PoE 1. For those of you who remember that, they're actually the Scourge monsters. So a bunch of extra demons will spawn out of nowhere, which will come to kill you. Obviously, this increases the amount of monsters you'll be facing, and sometimes you get some really big ones. And it's really nice. There's some good loot from this as well that you can pick up, which is pretty cool. So that's one of the icons. Another icon we can talk about is this icon right here is a boss icon. Area contains a deadly map boss. This is the maps that actually do contain a boss for that map. So this is a Savannah map. I believe that is the early Act 2, the first area Act 2 boss, I think it is. Bosses are extremely good to run. So if you find these boss nodes, I would recommend going for them, especially in the early stage. You drop a ton of maps from them. You drop a ton of loot from them. They're very, very, very valuable. So if you're looking for early game currency, these are super valuable to pick up. So that's another thing you can do, and I would strongly recommend doing so and hunting those down. Even better if you're able to bring the monster level up. On the skill tree, you actually will get boss nodes from killing bosses in your maps, and the higher the tier of the boss you kill, the more points you get, and the last 2 points, I believe, is from the Arbiter, which is like the in-game boss, right? 2 points can also be earned for completing the Pinnacle of Flame quest. So that's how you do the points in this mapping system. And each one of these points makes the boss significantly harder. Just keep that in mind. So I went for rarity of items boss and making them drop even more waystones for me and making it some strong boxes. I'm not a big fan of that. I might actually change that. And that basically increases map levels. And what I'm doing here is making it so that areas that have a map boss is already irradiated, which means I don't have to think about that irradiated, that increased map level. So if I want to do super high tier 16s to be area level 82, all I need is for a map to have a boss or irradiate together with the corruption. So it's a really nice way to scale that with this system. So that's how that icon works. Another icon that I'm currently working on pretty hard right now is actually rituals, is what I'm trying to chase down. I will point out that in the current state of the game, it's really rough to scale or find skill points for ritual personally. I'll talk about that real brief. See if I can find one around here. There's one here on the side. That's how the ritual looks, but I'll see if I'm connected to one. Here's one. So this map here has a ritual. What this does is provide rituals altars, which we find in Act 1 actually from Freythorn, where we get our first spirit skill when you start playing the game. So basically you will find 3 to 4, I think it is, different rituals on the map. What happens there is that the rituals will resurrect any monster that you've killed in the vicinity of the ritual, and then you have to kill them, and you get points for this, and then you have to clear all of these different rituals, which will then open up a little menu. There you have some tribute, which looks like this. So these show ritual rewards. I've killed 3 here in the bottom right corner. You see the icon right there. So let me show you that. It looks like that little icon. You click on this, you can see 3 out of 3. I've cleared them. And I'll click this, I'll get this menu. I've gotten tribute. You can re-roll for 1,000 tribute once per area, which I've already done here. And then I can use this tribute to choose which more rewards I want. If I want the regal, it's going to cost me 360 tribute, for example, to pick this up. And the way to scale points here is to find a little item from this reward system that's called Audience with a King. And it's actually worth quite a lot of money. But you have to kill that boss to get the points to scale the skill tree for this specific mechanic. And that's currently taking ages. I haven't found a single one yet. So in this area, you can find some good upgrades. For example, this one's a pretty good life and resistance providing armor. So there's a lot of loot you can get from this. It's very effective in the early stage to help you with gearing in general. Like this one here is actually not bad either. Might actually snag that one. There you go. Now 488 left. I'll just take the Regal Orb and call it a day. So that's basically how you can do it. Defer items. What it does is that you will only pay 15% of an item's original cost to defer it. And then the item will reappear next time you do, or in a future time that you run the ritual, and it will also be discounted. So if you find something you really want and it's really expensive, you just use the defer system to make that available for you at a discounted tribute cost later on. Or maybe I want to pick up this Orb of Augmentation, but I couldn't because I'm out of tribute. I can then click defer and click on this one, then confirm. It will cost me 31 tributes, and this specific augmentation will show up at a later time. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be doing that, but that's how that system works. Skill tree points for ritual requires me to kill the Crux of Nothingness. This is the Audience with the King area. I have not found a single one yet, which I'm a little frustrated about. Last but not least, when it comes to the skill mechanic approaches in the game from the map device, is Delirium. Delirium is very specific, and it also makes the map extremely hard to handle sometimes. So I'm going to show you this real quick if I can find a zone with it. There's one right there. It's the white and black or gray and black icon there. I'm not connected to it. See if I am connected to any of these. Here's one. There's the Delirium Mirror. There's a lot of information here, but I'm going to go through it. Basically, there's a Delirium Mirror. As soon as you enter the map, there's a little mirror that you can step through. And what that does is create a fog or gray fog across the entire map that grows essentially. And when the more you kill and you follow this, the longer it will last. If you engage with other league mechanics such as Ritual or Breaches, it will actually extend the duration of this fog. And you defeat monsters in the fog will increase a reward counter, which actually will show up on the bottom left corner. And the more monsters you kill will level this reward up. So every time it goes to the next level, monsters and everything becomes harder and harder and harder that spawns from this Delirium mechanic. And there's a random set of rewards. You can get currency orbs, you can get body armor, or like armors or weapons. So there's a long list of different things you get from this specific mechanic, and they drop Delirium splinters that you pick up as a specific league reward. Essentially, this just ramps up the difficulty. The enemies take a % less damage the harder it gets as well, so it actually gets really rough in the end. So they just ramp up that way. What you get from the Delirium mechanic is Delirium Splinters. If you get 300 of these, you get to fight the endgame version of the Simulacrum, which is a specific map zone that is about the Delirium, for some specific rewards in there. But most importantly, you get these distilled pieces. So, for example, the minion builds, most of the minion builds will be distilling the Flashy Deflection, which is Guilt, Greed, Guilt, I believe it is. Or Double Greed, it might be. So if you put them in your inventory and then right-click in these, you will actually open up the instilling menu. So if I were to put my amulet in here and put Greed, Guilt, Greed, I will now be able to instill a Flashy Deflection, which in this case I already have it. To be able to tell which nodes you want, let's say I want Mental Perseverance, which is up here, I would hover over this and hold down the Alt key. It will tell me that to get this specific notable on my amulet, I would need to use an Ire, Disgust, and Greed. In my case, I was using flashy deflections, which is greed, guild, greed in that order, very specific. That it has to very important that it has to be in the correct order. But greed, guild, greed to get this one. If I were to open them up and I say, well, maybe I put guild, greed, greed, that's going to give me another notifier or notable on the tree instead. So that's how that system works with that specific mechanic. Besides that, let me shove this in here. Besides that, every time you traverse or you fail a map, you will lose every icon. I have a map somewhere here that failed, I think. Was it? Yeah, this one here says that this map was attempted. This was a really juiced map, and I failed it. What happens is that all of the icons disappear, and now the map becomes, or the Waystone node becomes an empty one, where I can literally go in here and pop a new map and run it, but there's nothing else here. Nothing that scales it, nothing special, nothing good is actually coming out of this map, making it a very simple map to do. So if you fail a map, you can still do it to continue traversing and finding other nodes on the area, but you're not going to be able to be blocked anywhere to move, but you lose all the potential rewards for this. So that's how that works. And then we have obviously the Lost Towers. Lost Towers are actually really bad layouts with bad pack size. So when you do engage with a Lost Tower, my recommendation is to take your lowest tier map that you don't give a shit about, pop it, run it, finish the Lost Tower. Once you're done with the tower, you'll be able to put a precursor into it. And the precursor, what they will do is within radius, with a pretty large circle around these towers, you'll be able to put a precursor in. In my case, I am trying to get rituals. So if I look at the ritual precursors, I actually only have one right now, which makes it so that 6 maps in range contains ritual altars. So if I were to pop this one on one of these towers, what would happen is I would get the ritual icon on 6 maps within radius of this that I haven't done yet, which allows me to get to farm that specific mechanic. So that is an effective way for you to ramp up the rituals for these mechanics or get specific league mechanics into the maps that you want to run by doing these towers. So that's how you kind of pseudo-target farm what you want to do. These precursors can also be rolled magic-wise. You can transmute them and I can augment them. So in this case, in the areas in radius of the towers, if I pop this one, will actually increase the rarity of items found for this one. And revived monsters from ritual altars in your maps have increased chance to be rare. So this is actually a pretty cool one, and it will actually pop into every map within radius of these things. So that's a pretty cool system to chase these towers down. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the Citadels and the Endgame Pinnacle mechanic. And what these do is that if you go to, if you kill one of them, you get a Crisis Fragment. And the Crisis Fragments, you need to find 3 different ones. It's from a Copper, Iron, and Copper, Iron, Stone Citadels. Drop these 3. If you have 3 different ones in the first zone, you'll see a Pinnacle, Boss Zone, Arbiter, Flame. If you're able to have 3 of these, you can then engage with that fight, which is a very, 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 very hard fight, mind you. So do keep that in mind. The way this system works is that you'll have to find these bosses or purchase them. They come from these Citadels. The way to spot these Citadels is that you'll find these houses here. They're brown houses in this area. So if I see them in the corner of the smoke, or the fog of war, I can then know that there's going to be a Citadel here. And this one is for the Iron Citadel. And that allows me to do the boss, which is one of the... It says map failed. It's currently a bug. Even if you clear it, it will still say map failed, which is kind of annoying. That's why I can't access this tower right now. But by killing the boss, you get a Crisis Fragment. So the brown houses will lead to the Iron Citadel. I have these gray turquoise colored tents, if you will lead to the Copper Citadel. And I still have not seen a Stone Citadel, but they will look more like ziggurats or temple-like buildings, if you will, or towers or some sort, which will lead to the Stone Citadel. And then you'll have to run the Stone Citadel. This one actually says it's completed, surprisingly enough. And once you kill that boss, you'll be able to do that. And these Citadels are currently, but that I've seen at least, are last boss of different acts, bosses that you'll engage with and have to fight. And I'm assuming the Stone Citadel is the Doriani fight. I believe the Copper one is the Act 1. No, that it would be the Act 2 boss on the... moving city, whereas the Iron Citadel, I believe, is the first act where you fight the doggy. boss instead. So killing those will give the crisis fragment, and that kind of like sums up the mapping system of the Atlas of what you can expect to do. So I'm going to do a little TLDR that you've actually listened to me yap and rant about this forever in the early stage. Just do as many maps as you can. Only do the tier map, Waystone, that you're able to handle. I would recommend making sure that you run them in a magical state, so pop a transmutation and a augment orb on them. If you feel like you have an excessive amount of regal orbs, like once you start getting a lot of drops, you can start regaling the orbs as well. Make sure that you are able to handle the content you're running. And if you want to target some specific league mechanics, such as the ritual that I'm working on, or delirium, or the expedition, which is one I haven't talked about, and then breach, you'll be able to then do so, and you can get help achieving that by using the towers with the precursors. Another mechanic I forgot to mention, thank God I looked at that, is the expedition. It looks like this little icon rare. Let's see if I can find one I'm connected to. This is a really interesting mechanic that I really like, is it actually helps out with gearing, especially early on. So this is providing you a called Ganon Expedition. Before you get access to these NPCs, you actually need to find every single one of these NPCs in this mechanic. And what it does, it should be a lot of information here. Basically, you'll find NPCs that you'll have to place some explosives, and you can do so around a very small area inside the Waystone map area. And you can then click on detonate, which will then explode these things, and there's going to be a bunch of monsters spawning they can be very scary. And killing them will grant you different currency for this mechanic. And obviously, as you can also drop logbooks, which is how you get skill points for the skill tree. The specific currency orbs looks like this, which is Order Artifact, Black Scythe Artifacts, and Broken Circle Artifacts, as well as the exotic coinage. So what these are doing is that you will be able to find Tujin, Gwenin, or Rog. There's 3 different NPCs. I have them here in the back, and Danig as well. Danig would allow you to change, if you have Sun artifacts, will able to purchase specific currency orbs for the specific type of different ones. Whereas in Rog, for example, if you buy these, he'll charge you Order artifacts. If you look at Gwenin, she will charge you Broken Circle artifacts, and Tujin is the Black Scythe artifacts. As you can see, Tujin is selling you jewelries and belts. Gwenin will sell you different weapons, and Rog will sell you random pieces of armor. The exotic coinage is used to reroll this. I do have a video on this specific mechanic of how to craft with this, because if I buy one of these items, you will not just get the item. You will get a little window that pops up, allowing you to have a handful of different crafting mechanics that you can go through by paying more of this currency, in this case, Order artifacts. I will be able to pay more to do certain specific crafting with this. This is available in a guide that I'm going to have linked in the descriptions below, so do check it out. It is extremely valuable, both for making currency to sell items, but also to help you upgrade your character. And that kind of sums up the general start of mapping as you get through the end game, finish the campaign, you do the start of the maps. Just have fun with it. There are obviously going to be meta farming strategies that's going to be shaped up and done later, but I think that most of these guides out there are focusing on high-end content that people that are experienced with the game is going to utilize. So I want to make sure this video is covering the basics of how to get it. For example, how to get a hideout from the map system itself, how to engage with these things, how to decide whether or not you want to run the Lost Towers, and how you decide which type of precursors to use for them. So I hope this video is useful for you and to help someone out there. One last thing I want to point out is that sometimes you'll engage with or find the moment of Zen. This is similar to towers or hideouts. Essentially, there's no monsters in this. So when you find this area, this contains the seer. It's a traveling merchant. Just use the lowest tier map that you have, or Waystone, and go in. There's only an NPC in there, which will give you 1 free unique out of a handful of options. Just look at them, see if there's anything that helps you build, or maybe something that's valuable, and you get a free unique out of it. Besides that, there are other unique map areas. I believe I have one somewhere, if I can find it. Basically, what you can do is sometimes engage with what's called unique maps, which is a reference to PoE 1. And one of the most prominent ones that we talked about and seen in the past is actually Untainted Paradise here. So this is an Untainted Paradise map. If I were to go to this one, this is a very specific zone which says that the monsters don't drop any items at all. But what it does is it has an increased experience gain in this zone and increased pack size. So if I were to go to this zone and I pop a high tier map, what would happen is I would get tons and tons and tons of experience from this specific map. but I would not be getting any loot. So there's a couple of these unique maps. I've only seen the Untainted Paradise and the Nameless Seer, which is the Traveling Merchant so far. I'm not sure what else is in the game right now that I've seen so far, but that's how the mapping system works in a TLDR fashion. I know this video got a little longer than expected, but I hope it was of use to any of you guys out there. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content to help out the channel, and do leave a comment down below if you have any specific tips for the new players coming in to try Path of Exile 2 that might help them gain more currency or understand what kind of decisions they should make as they start progressing the actual content. I will finalize this that if you're able to do the Citadels, you're not confident in doing endgame Pinnacle bosses, sell these fragments. They're actually worth quite a bit of currency. You can do so by saying, hey, I have an Ancient Crisis fragment, and then sell that for a Divine Orb. I can get 39 Divine Orbs for one of these, as an example. So they're worth a lot of money. Divine Orbs, okay, you'd have to sell 2 for 1. So when it comes to this, I would very much recommend looking into this specific mechanic, which is the currency exchange. You get that from Alva. You can just control click her. Another little detail when it comes to control clicking units, if I click this one and I hold on control when I left click it, it will actually open up the first menu. From Alva, it would open up the currency exchange. If I control click this, it'll immediately open up the disenchant window. You have Doriani, who's identifying all your items. If I hold down control, actually we can do it this way. I'll show you this live in action before finalizing and ending this ranty yapping video. Essentially, if you have an unidentified item, let's see if we can find one real quick. You would control click the Doriani guy. What would then happen is, you see here, these are unidentified. You don't have to spend any wisdom scrolls, but all you have to do is you left click him, click identify, the items will be identified. But if you hold on control and click him, as you can see here in the bottom left, the items are already identified. So that's an effective way. So when you're done with the map, just control click Doriani and then do your thing, and now your items are identified. So those small things you can do in this game. Anyways, I'm going to stop yapping, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.